Hello everybody, welcome to the MistareFusion 10,000 subscriber Q&A. This was originally supposed to be the MistareFusion 7,000 subscriber Q&A, and it was supposed to come out last summer, as in almost 18 months ago. But fact of the matter is, I'm new at this whole Q&A thing, and you wouldn't believe how many times I've recorded this thing. 4 times. This is the 4th time. I was just never satisfied with it. Never. Not a single time. It went on too long. I got tired. I got boring. I didn't even have to watch it to know that I got boring. So, I'm trying this again. Over 3,000 subscribers later. And I decided, hey, why not be a little fancy? Let's ditch the usual graphic tee and have my own unique blend of masculinity and femininity. I enjoy it. I enjoy me. I'm glad you guys are all here. Thank you so much for allowing me to get to 10,000 subscribers. Hopefully I'm not going to ramble on too much and have to re-record this again. But I'm going to try to make this a little more compact than I did before. Make it a little more exciting, a little more energetic. I've had about 17 cups of coffee. I'm lying. I don't even drink coffee. Where am I going with this? Q&A time, 10,000. I couldn't have done this without you guys. I can't believe I've been doing videos for this long. I've had this channel for over 10 years. Posted my first video 10 years ago this year. Started doing regular reviews over 8 years ago. And I am very, very lucky to have you guys around. Thank you so much. But you guys did send me these questions last summer, so I'm going to answer them. And believe it or not, some of these are out of date. I apologize. But I'm still going to answer them. So let's get started, okay? Alright, so I guess unsurprisingly, considering that I'm mostly known for a Dragon Ball review series, I got a lot of questions asking about what other anime that I like. Now, the sad truth of the matter is I don't really follow it as well as I should, as well as I probably should being in my position. That's not to say I've never been a fan of other anime, but a lot of it was when I was a teenager, and I really haven't followed it much since then. I was really big into Tenchi Muyo as a kid. I still have a lot of the DVDs of that. I had some of the manga. I had 1 volume of the manga of that, but I own all the movies. I'm mostly a fan of the original OVAs of that, less so for the TV versions, but I'd love to see those again. I'd love to give Shin Tenchi Muyo or Tenchi in Tokyo another chance. I've only ever seen that once, and that was back during its Tsunami run. I've always been interested in Sailor Moon. I've seen all the first series in Japanese. I own a couple of the movies. I've never been terribly up to date with it, but I've always enjoyed it. It can get a little formulaic for me sometimes. It's like sort of like you see in one episode of Power Rangers, you've seen them all, and I got the Power Ranger fans mad already. Woo! Okay. I also really used to be a big fan of Ranma 1/2, and believe it or not, the concept of it intrigued me. I can't imagine why. But yeah, I read a lot of the Ranma 1/2 manga. I used to have the big Viz box set, which cost $100. I don't have it anymore. Kind of lost it in a breakup. But I really haven't followed that much in a while. Also, recently I watched a couple episodes of Seven Deadly Sins because I was asked to play the character of Gother in a burlesque show for Anime Festival Orlando back in June. I had to watch a couple just to get the feel of the character. In fact, actually, I got this top to wear as part of my costume. That was the Gother waitress outfit. And I really think I would like that if I watched more of it. I feel that Gother is kind of my spirit animal. Even though I got a lot of negative backlash on Twitter for even asking about this series, saying that I was going to be involved. Everybody's like, no, don't. As if they don't. Again, you don't really seem to know me that well if you'd say things like that. Because they would say don't, I'd say why, and they'd send me a picture of Gother in the waitress outfit, as if that was going to scare me off. So yeah, there's been other anime I've been into, but I don't really often follow anime. Oh, I watched a little bit of Gundam Wing when that was on Toonami, and I have the Gundam Wing Endless Waltz DVD, but I haven't watched it in years. I don't even think it's probably at my mom's house in another state, so I don't know. Okay, the next fun one that really shows the age of when this video was supposed to come out. Got a lot of Batman questions because this is right as Batman v Superman was supposed to come out. So this is really off the point now. But the sadder thing is, if that wasn't sad enough, the sadder thing is, I have not seen this movie. I still have not seen this movie. I have never missed a Batman movie before. I even saw The Killing Joke in theaters with Geekdom 101. And that was terrible. Ugh. I could do a whole video about that at some point if I ever get the time. Because I haven't done much Batman lately. I really should get on that. So I have not seen Batman v Superman, so I can't answer if Bale or Affleck is better. Apparently Justice League just came out. I haven't seen that either. So who knows if I might ever actually get to see Ben Affleck as Batman. The only movie of this new DCEU continuity I've seen is Wonder Woman, which I need to do a video on that one too, because I've covered Wonder Woman twice on my channel before, and I really need to add this to make a whole holy trinity of Wonder Woman, because I have a lot to say about that movie. So, favorite Batman interpretation? Oh, that's like asking me to choose what my favorite child is. It really depends on what kind of mood I'm in, because, I mean, I grew up reading the comics, both what was current then, like late 80s, early 90s comics, as well, but I probably read more classic comics, like Silver Age, 50s, 60s, a lot of Golden Age too, but I grew up watching the serials, and the 60s Batman, and the Tim Burton Batman, the animated series Batman, and they're all good, interesting in their own way, and I can't. Somebody help me! As for the more general question, just got done watching Stranger Things 2. I don't think I'd seen Stranger Things 1 when I was fielding these questions. I don't even know if that was a thing yet. And I feel that it is too soon to start discussing spoiler type things, so I'm not going to, but oh, the feels. Oh, why did they let that happen? But then they turned a character I already liked, they really redeemed him and made him really flippin' awesome. I'm not going to spoil anything. I can't talk about it. I want to talk about it, but I can't. Honestly, the only movie I'm kind of looking forward to seeing right now, and I hope I get a chance to get out to the theaters and see it, is LBJ, starring Woody Harrelson, as the 36th president of the United States, because I'm really big into American history and presidents in general. I can name every president in order. I can name their terms. I can name their number. You give me a number. You give me a number, you give me a year. Either one, I can tell you what the president was. Sadly, there's nobody here to quiz me right now. It's just me sitting in front of a camera. If you want to leave a comment, I guess that really wouldn't help much because I could just look it up. You wouldn't know if I was being real about it or not. I don't really know how to test this. But just believe me when I say I can name every president of the United States. I can. I promise. I totally can. Alright, I also got a lot of favorite Dragon Ball character questions, and that's also a difficult one for me. Someone mentioned Yamcha, someone mentioned Chaozu, that was jokingly, although, I mean, I don't dislike Chaozu. I have the little quips, the running gags, like the nobody cares about Chaozu, the Yamcha, the poor dolt, but they're done with a sense of sympathy toward it. I don't do it out of malice, because I do feel I feel that Chaozu is a pretty blank character for the most part, a really a wasted character that never really got off the ground, that was sort of put in a prominent role but never really given any prominent things to do. And so I feel sympathy for him for that. Yamcha is almost a different case, because Yamcha is not just a wasted character, but he's a character who actually got to kind of show his potential early on, who was interesting, who was fascinating, who had a lot to bring to the table, and not just in a potential sense, who actually showed he had a lot to bring to the table, and then was just completely handled in one of the worst ways I can imagine. And we're going to be getting into that really soon, this Dragon Ball Dissection December, not to give too much away. It's something I've been waiting to talk about for a very long time. I love Son Goku, although it kind of depends on what era of Son Goku we're talking about, because as I talk about in the Frieza arc, Toriyama starts to write Goku differently. I don't care what anybody says to the contrary. Goku at the beginning of the series was a much different character than he was at the end, and not necessarily in a good way, where certain negative traits begin to be emphasized. And I'm going to get into more detail about that later on in Dragon Ball Dissection as well. But he's definitely one of my favorites. As a kid growing up, Gohan was one of my favorites as well, because I identified with him. I related to him on a pretty strong level. But, if I had to narrow it down to three, I guess it might be those three. But there's just so many fun, interesting characters in Dragon Ball. I always have a hard time answering this question. No matter how much time I take to prepare ahead of time, I can never really think of a good answer for this. There are probably a few. I don't know if Ranma 1/2 counts, because again, that was part of the appeal for it. The ability to jump, to be able to change your sex at will is kind of fun, just for the opportunities that it presents. I guess you could say I'm a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, even though I haven't watched it in a couple of years. So that's definitely breaking gender conformity. I don't know. It's hard to say just because that's such a I wouldn't say a loaded question, but it's a difficult question because what constitutes gender nonconformity is going to vary from place to place and from time period to time period. I mean, you could almost, depending on how you want to look at it, what perspective you're coming from, you could say that Joe from The Facts of Life, was a gender nonconforming character just because it's a, really serious, tomboy, mechanically inclined character from late 70s, early 80s. So it depends on how far you're looking to go for that and, what you consider to be nonconforming. I guess Sailor Moon has, gender nonconforming characters too with the Sailor Starlights. Not that I've gotten to see those episodes. Although Sailor Uranus is one of my favorite, the Sailor Senshi. And, I like her because of that same kind of dichotomy. It's like when she's in her civilian garb, she's wearing fancy suits, but then she still gets to wear the cute leotard with the mini skirt when she's actually transformed into Sailor Uranus. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a bit difficult in a skirt. Okay, this is an even more fun one to do now because this movie has actually come out since this question was asked. So what did I think of the new Power Rangers movie? I'll have to rewrite that question. Hope you don't mind. I'm gonna say what I did think about it, not what I will think about it in the future. I did see it. It was good. It was not great, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed parts of it. That's a very conditional answer. I love the parts with the teenagers. I love Power Rangers a la The Breakfast Club. The characters, especially Billy, were fantastic. It's when they became the Power Rangers that the movie kind of lost me. That's when it became boring and annoying. I hated the Power Rangers suits. Say what you will about the ones from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie. They looked like, higher quality versions of what they wore in the TV show. This reminds me more of 2007 Spider-Man 3 Venom. I don't even dislike that movie all that much. But yeah, with the face peeling back, it's like they don't want to show the flipping masks. Why not? I mean, we've spent an hour and a half with these characters without wearing costumes. I think we've seen their faces enough. But yeah, they don't want to wear the masks, and then the Zords were even worse. Because I think the fun of Power Rangers and the fun of the toys, at least that's what I always had fun with, was being able to take the Zords and put them together and take them apart and seeing exactly what piece does what thing to make a combined whole. And with the Zords in the movie, it was just a Michael Bay Transformer CGI blob kind of thing, where I look at it and I don't see anything. I don't see individual parts. I just see a blob of computer generated poop. No. Ooh, this is a fun one. Okay. It's a pretty simple process, really. When I was writing the script for the intro video, I've been thinking about it for a long time. But basically, like I said, it's all scored on a curve. It's not an objective scale of good or bad. 10 doesn't mean perfect, and 1 doesn't mean, irredeemable. They're basically just how they relate to each other. So I wrote down the first arc, Hunt for the Dragon Balls arc. Then I thought of the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai arc. And do I think this is better or worse than that? And I thought I didn't like it, I didn't think it was quite as good, so I put it underneath it. Then I got to Red Ribbon Army arc. I'm like, is it better than 21st? Yes. Is it better than Hunt? Yes. So I put it above those two. And then I kept on doing that all the way down, and eventually I had a list of 10. I just, sort of slotted them in how they related to each other until I was done with all the arcs. I actually have talked about this in Dragon Ball Dissection. There has been an arc that I changed the score on, and that was the Piccolo Daimo arc. That I ended up finding so many faults with it as I was reviewing it. I didn't come in, with it with some kind of agenda to crap all over it. That was just the way it turned out. But I ended up being so negative. I ended up realizing that I liked another arc better than it. I thought that another arc was better than it. So I bumped that down because Piccolo's originally was the 3 score, and ended up being the 2 score. So what was originally the 2 score, in turn shifted up to 3. And as you know, we have a 3 and a 1 left at Dragon Ball Dissection right now. So eventually you'll find out what that arc was that got displaced. There have been episodes I've really enjoyed, episodes I haven't enjoyed, but in an overall sense it hasn't been terribly special to me. I really used to enjoy the Slice of Life episodes, but even they started to become a bit too overabundant to the point that they outlived their welcome. I really enjoyed the baseball episode. I loved the Vegeta cooking episode. Stuff like that. I loved the Goku with the tractor, like when he gets knocked out of the ring and then pretends to be injured and then flies away. That was hilarious. But I don't really get much of a sense of progression from Super. And where we are right now, which is, for reference, in case anybody watches this in the future, that's the Tournament of Power stuff, which I thought I was really going to enjoy, because it was a kind of format the series hadn't really done before. A battle royale, a large battle royale. There was obviously one, in the Boo arc, with 5 people that lasted only, didn't last very long. But, a very large battle royale with very huge stakes, the hugest stakes we've ever seen before, that really had the potential to be really tense, really unpleasant. Think like the Hunger Games. I sort of expected a mentality like that, where it's all these people who have no real beef against each other are being pitted against each other. And they know that only one set of them, in this case, one team of them, can survive. And we did that. I think we had one moment like that where Gohan, defeats a guy. And that's the only time I felt like there was any kind of reluctance to take place in this fight. That, that we're having to do something wrong to protect ourselves, which is a fascinating moral dilemma. And they've been kind of tossing it down the crapper. It's just, There have been long fights in Dragon Ball before, and I don't know if it's just because it's new to me on a weekly basis, because even I came from the Toonami age where we were getting it 5 days a week, you know? But this just feels like it's been going on too long. It's been about 15 episodes now, and it feels really long because there's no sense of progression to it. There are too many people to keep track of. There are too many fights that start and then get put off. Where it's like they'll fight for a little bit and then they'll get separated somehow. It's like, oh, I'll get you next time. And it just, I've lost track of what's going on now. I have a hard time paying attention in episodes. I start spacing out and thinking of other things, like what I'm going to have for breakfast, you know? Because there's just... Okay, like in the previous tournaments, it was easy to keep track of things. You had 8 fighters, 4 final matches... And so you knew exactly where you were at any given time and how much there was left to this. Here, I mean, it doesn't help the fact that they, obviously are expanding time in that oh-so-wonderful Frieza arc fashion. It feels like this could go on forever. I don't care how long they spin that little top down. This could go on forever. There's no real sense that anything has really changed. We've lost a lot of combatants, although not very many on our team, which is not helping in terms of creating a tense atmosphere. Our side seems kind of invincible right now. Oh, speaking of invincible people, I don't like Jiren. I don't dislike Jiren. If I disliked him, I'd be interested because he'd be evoking some kind of emotion in me. Jiren is the most boring character I've ever met in my entire life. Second only to Hit. Jiren, when Jiren and Hit, fought each other, that was like the biggest ball of boredom I've ever seen. Although Jiren makes Hit look positively charismatic by comparison. Oh god, I'm ranting now. I am so ranting. I'm sorry. Is this what people want from me? Everybody like Geekdom always tells me to do super reviews, and I always say I don't really have enough perspective to really talk about it authoritatively. Is this what people want from me, to just rant about Super for a long time? I don't know if I really want to do that. But for all those who want that kind of stuff, well, this is it. Soak it up, absorb it, because this is it. This is it right now. So I'm really more apathetic towards it than anything. We'll have to see how it goes from here on out. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this tournament because it is just so boring. Okay, more behind the scenes Dragon Ball dissection stuff. I like this. Thanks, Gabby. How long does it take? That's variable. So I'll go to the second one first. That is also varied since when I started. When I first started, when I did the Hunt for the Dragon Balls arc, for example, I wrote that as one big script, and then I chopped it into 3 parts. So if you go back and watch those, you'll see that the endings of episodes are kind of abrupt, and that's just because I didn't have an ending for them. It was just, this is the most logical place I can cut this now, so I cut it. And I think it was the same for the 21st... excuse me. I think it was the same for the 21st Budokai as well. But definitely once I got to Red Ribbon, I started writing them individually, and I continue to do it that way now. As for how long it takes to write a script, it's however the creativity flows, honestly. One I can think of off the top of my head that was a real pain in the butt was when I did Movie 2 about this time last year. I think I wrote that script like 3 times. I just was never satisfied with it. And the movies and DVD TV stuff like that I tend to think they turn out really well, but they're also kind of the hardest because at least with the manga, the way I cover that chronologically, it sort of creates its own framework. But with the movies and stuff like that, it ends up I'm having to create my own structure for it based entirely on topic and theme. And so that my thoughts end up getting kind of muddled. And so I ended up having to rewrite it over and over again. And that one was one that was really difficult. So sometimes the inspiration strikes me and I just type everything out and I look back at it and it's perfect. I usually come back to it after a day or so just to make sure, just to get a fresh perspective on it. But sometimes it's pretty simple. And sometimes I'm really hard on my own work, so it's really nice when I come back to something that I'm like, oh, that was crap. Let me just look at it and see how much crap it is, and I read it and go, oh, that's actually pretty good. I don't know if I give any actual time. I really should time myself at some point to see how much it takes to make a single episode of Dragon Ball dissection. I probably shouldn't do that right now because I'm kind of working on 4 or 5 at the same time. I'm writing scripts as I'm, at least I will be. That's how Dragon Ball Dissection December typically works, is that I'll be writing and editing and, and recording at the same time on multiple episodes, just trying to keep up, trying to do whatever I can in a certain location and just get as much together on my computer so when I'm out and about I can work on it then. So, December scares me. It always does, and hopefully I'll get through it again this year for the 5th time. Alright, that's another very good question. I like that, because it ends up being a bit more complex than I would have initially thought. The simple answer is, when I was about to finish high school, I think around that time, I joined a Back to the Future forum at bttf.com. Because I'm really big into Back to the Future. And, there's the MistareFusion home fusion reactor thing. It's what Doc Brown replaces the plutonium chamber with when he comes back from the far-off future of 2015. Wait. From the far-off future of 2015. The far-off future of 2015. I got the newspaper. I got it the other day. It was on the newsstands on this day 2 years ago. We're 2 years past the future now. But yeah, even though we don't have MistareFusion in real life, we have MistareFusion. Because at the time when I was like 17 years old, I thought that corrupting the ends of words like that into, Mr. into Mystare was the height of cool. So that was my username on the forum. And then I made my YouTube account a couple of years later, and I just sort of carried that name over. And I started making videos on that channel, and it became somewhat popular, and it kind of stuck with me. But the interesting part is that when I got my friend Drew 005 to make a logo for me, he took inspiration from Dragon Ball, and this is when I still wasn't terribly well known for Dragon Ball. I mean, my Dragon Box review had done really well, but he was thinking of the fusion dance from Dragon Ball, and that's why the two halves of the word fusion are an orange and blue, because they're Goku colors, and that's why they're bending towards each other, just like leaning towards each other for the fusion dance. So yeah, it ended up being kind of a double meaning. So there you go. Okay, I don't really keep up with Power Rangers or Sentai anymore, and I didn't even when I was making my Power Ranger videos. I will say that that Birdie and I were doing a thing for a while. Actually, it's funny, kind of backwards from how I usually purport to do things. We got into a habit of... So you mentioned the DVD sets. It's not quite the same thing, but it's the best we did, best we could do. We would watch an episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on Netflix. And then we would go to the Shout website where you can actually watch all the episodes. And then we watched the corresponding Zyuranger episode. Like I said, reverse from how, watching the original and the adaptation, watching the adaptation and then the original. But it was a lot of fun that way. Because I remember like the first episode we watched was the one where Billy makes this mind reading machine, and he tests it out with Kimberly, but it ends up being a mind swapping machine, and so they switch bodies, and there's all these crazy hijinks about them having, like, Billy has to, Billy can't do his makeup right, and Kimberly can't tutor somebody in computers without the computer literally exploding or something. And then all of a sudden a genie monster pops up, they fight the genie at the end. It's really... it was... I remember the episode as a kid, but watching it as an adult, it was the biggest sack of crap I've ever seen in my life. The plot had no coherence whatsoever. And so that was sort of what inspired us to go, well, let's see what the original episode was about. Because it's been several years since I've watched these. And we watched that, and it had nothing to do with that. I mean, the all they took was the monster footage, but the plot was actually about this genie who befriends a group of kids and gives them whatever they want, and they become attached to him, and then Bandora kidnaps him and corrupts him and turns him into this, makes him fight against the Jew Rangers, and it's really quite emotional. And Power Rangers is like, nah, forget that crap. Throw that out. Who needs that crap? Let's just have wacky, unrelated hijinks happen and then fight a monster at the end. And so we were like, that's fascinating. Let's watch more like that and see what other crazy crap they did. So it's kind of fun doing the whole Sentai Power Rangers comparison thing again several years later, only less structured, more for fun, and just kind of irreverently and backwards. So that's the most I've done in regards to that. Okay, so this is a fascinating question about death, because death obviously is very ripe for dramatic potential because it is unknown, it is mysterious, it is permanent, it is something that separates us in a very permanent kind of way. When somebody you know dies, they are taken away from you, and you cannot reach out. You can't reach them again. And likewise, fiction has the advantage of being able to look at things like that you couldn't see it in real life. You actually can reach the dead. You can see the afterlife. You can bring people back to life. You can do all those things you can only dream about in real life. Have all these different types of versions of what the afterlife is, of what death is, of what resurrection is. And those are all really fascinating subjects to explore. And I'd be lying if I said that Dragon Ball eventually makes death too cheap. I mean, from the beginning, you have wish-granting magical orbs that at the time they were originally written could grant any wish. Now it's a bit less so. In order to keep drama to a certain extent, they added rules like you can't bring the same person back to life more than once, which was, as I have to remind people, that wasn't the rule. The rule is you can't have the same wish granted more than once, but it only ever was applied in terms of death. But then you got a second set of Dragon Balls. Now you have a third set of Dragon Balls, and death has become extremely meaningless. That was one of the worst parts of the Resurrection F television adaptation, was that they threw in a death for Piccolo that meant jack diddly squat. It was barely a footnote bringing him back to life, when in the past Toriyama at least had been able to balance it, always give some kind of limitation, such as Piccolo dying, therefore the Dragon Balls are inert. You had basically ways you had to really work to earn that. The entire Frieza arc was the characters having to struggle to bring their friends back to life. That the struggle to bring them back was almost more daunting than the deaths themselves, and that helps make a good death. People like the quintessential resurrection story, in my opinion, is Spock from Star Trek, because that was such an iconic death scene that you almost kind of ruin by bringing him back to life, because it was supposed to be final. And death is better. It doesn't carry any dramatic weight if you don't think it's going to be final. Star Trek 3 is not as good a movie as Star Trek 2. And the plot points don't make that as much sense as they need to. And the sacrifices aren't as compelling as Spock's death had been in Star Trek 2. But you can't deny that it took a lot to get, and it took a lot of very special circumstances to bring Spock back to life, to the point where you could almost say that it was worth it. But Dragon Ball's at the point now where, again, Piccolo, Resurrection F, need I say more? It's all just so simple and so pointless. it's hard to have emotional stakes anymore. And finally, I do have a couple of new questions. So for this one, I don't want to talk about it too much in depth because I do and have worked for larger corporations, so I try to keep that out of my video life because, there's all kinds of policies about talking to media. But I did do a video about my old job at the time for 4 years, but since I don't work there anymore, I can talk about it. I didn't mention the name then. For 4 years, I did work at Victoria's Secret, so that was interesting. Although for the most of that was sort of my side job, because I was seasonal at the job I have now until this year. So whenever my season would end, I would go back to Victoria's Secret. Again, you could watch that video for my thoughts on that job. It's a fascinating sociological look at things. Both. There's many more than two sides to this. Interesting in how I fit into that world, being a male and then also being a different kind of male. There's also how female customers treat a male working in that environment, how male customers treat a male working in that environment, and then of course how people from the outside would see me. They go, I was kind of, oh yeah, I wish I was working at Victoria's Secret. That was kind of the thing I was trying to dispel, because I had to dispel it, because I couldn't be taken seriously there if it was ever thought that I had any kind of lascivious motivations for working there. I kind of had to prove myself in that world, so it was a really fascinating situation to be in. And that's part of the reason why I kept it for so long, because there's never been a better conversation starter in my life than, yeah, I work at Victoria's Secret. And I have tons and tons and tons of stories from there. It's fascinating. I work now, I've been working more on the technical side of theater. My degree is more in performance of theater, but I did a lot of technical stuff while I was there too. I work on an ice skating show at a large theme park, and I get to do all kinds of crazy things there. I mentioned this on my Mario RPG video last time. I had to change the blade on our ice resurfacing machine. It's so sharp you have to wear chainmail gloves just to get near it, but I bumped my knee into it and it tore right through my pants, and I had to get 3 stitches in my leg a couple of weeks ago. So fun stuff like that. I get to do I get to do a lot of video work there. I get to do a lot of prop and scenic work. It's just a very fun job where I work now, and I really enjoy it, and that's about the most I can say about it. But it's always an adventure. And I think this is the best one to leave it off on. Unfortunately, I can't really answer it. But if you guys want to answer that one, you go right ahead. What? Oh God, I sound so conceited even throwing that out there. But I appreciate the question. I just do the best I can, and I'm glad that people enjoy it. It really means a lot to me that you guys enjoy it. If anybody does want to answer that question, that's perfectly fine. And I'll probably blush quite a bit as I'm reading the answers. But just to know that there's somebody there who does think that that it's worth watching, let alone the best, is something that means a lot to me, because I put a lot of effort into these videos. I've been doing Dragon Ball Dissection for almost 6 years now, which is insane. So thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Dragon Ball Dissection. Thank you for watching Batman. Thank you for watching my vlogs. Thank you for being fans. Thank you for being friends. Thank you just for being awesome, wonderful people. I love reading your comments. I love engaging you in the comments section and on Twitter and on Facebook. So thank you for just being so awesome and supportive all the time. And thanks for watching all the way through this 10,000 subscriber Q&A. Next video will be the beginning of Dragon Ball Dissection December with the TV version of the Saiyan arc. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are looking forward to it. And I will see you guys later. Thanks. Have a good day. Or good night. Or whatever. great end. Great ending to this video.